mechanisms.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
Daniele.
Daniel.
If I step in very quickly, since correctly enough, Peter and Daniele told us that we are, I mean, beyond the institutions, we are the first ones to be responsible for using different tools. And as you know, Eumans is using a lot of big tech tools. As a political movement, we also political movement focused on citizens. We have to go to where the citizens are, but this doesn't mean that we are not reflecting on implementing more open source tools ourselves. For example, we are exploring Jitsi and Big Blue Button that are two different open source for having calls or meetings. We're now using Zoom, but we are in the process of moving to different platforms. We are already have, I think, presence on Mastodon, but we decided to invest especially for the communication of the Civic AI campaign on Mastodon and to explore other social networks of the Fediverse. And I'm also trying to find out which is the best way of storing our knowledge on an open source tool. And if any of you has a how can I say, a recommendation on what tools we could use also to store knowledge as we do currently, for example, on other big tech options, I'm extremely interested in achieving the transition from big tech companies to open source tools and open source solutions. That just to say that, of course, change must come first and foremost from us and also from political movements, and this is what we're trying to do within Eumans itself. But I leave the floor again to Anna, and apologies for taking one more minute of your time.
No, Francesco, thank you very much. Maybe Daniel, you want to answer?
I would say that generally the Fediverse is I wouldn't say it there is so the point is it's not about really how to have how to completely escape the cage in that sense. I would say that this is a mature approach. What Eumans is actually trying to achieve. There are different messages and different contexts where you know where- that are better tailored for different type of channels. So at the actual moment, so currently we have many different type of communities in on Mastodon, and we know also Instagram and LinkedIn. All of these different social media, they host different type of communities, but it's not about making a big jump, a big transition all at once and cutting ourselves from everything else, because we of course know that everything is in transition, and it is about finding that 10%, that 15% where you can actually start making that little change, in many different small things. You can find alternatives in your communication platform. You can your streaming platform, your email provider. Fediverse is just one big tentative that is getting public in doing something that was not ever done before in terms of social media. But of course, this transition, of course, takes time, and it's wise to also point people as we are doing here, right? We are on Zoom, but we are talking about the Fediverse. So it's in that sense, it's just about letting people understand that alternatives exist. They have pros and cons, of course, but it's also a matter of like trying and starting from one step at a time.
Thank you, Daniel.
If I may ask something, if I may add something.
Yes,
if
go
you
ahead.
look at if you look at public communication, and I mean like my government, my local government, my library, my university, needs to put something ad valvas or whatever. What I see happening in certain regions, for instance, in Germany and in France, and now for sure in Holland, is that there is this +1 kind of attitude, meaning like And certain local governments even have this rule that the moment you publish some information that's interesting for their audience, for your community, that you at least put this as well on one open platform. Now, I can add even something more to this because in our relationship with the Dutch government and the CIO Rijk, it's called, the edict of the Dutch government. Actually, I heard a week or two ago a new news that since the change of the government there, that it's not the +1 rule that they're going to use, but it's the 1+ rule, meaning you have at least first publish something on the open platform, so Mastodon in that case, for instance, and then you can choose whatever you do. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to whatever. That's even a step further. So, and that kind of approaches really will help us to know, okay, when I need my trusted, open, real communication, my information, then I can go to that little environment, the Mastodon. So that's happening currently, and that's a huge step for mankind, to my opinion.
I agree. It's a great step for mankind. Thank you both of you for the introduction and for bringing such a difficult topic into a few minutes. Is I know it's not easy, but I think you raise very important topics. You talk about the public value, how algorithms actually shape society, the necessity for better public service infrastructure as well, and of course the free open source that where we can understand how actually social media or different technologies work, and this is not particularly what we have now. I think there are I found interesting. I always come back to very simple examples of Twitter. Once Twitter went down, let's say, and Elon Musk started to gain influence through it and use it as his own platform, people left, and a lot of different startups and different platforms like Mastodon started to appear. So I'm gonna give the floor to Catalina to ask these questions to the speakers. Welcome, Catalina. I'm really happy to have you here. She's a PhD student as well as a EU project manager at the BUD as well as at my university. And she is an expert on civic tech. So Catalina, I'm looking forward to hear your insights and ask and your questions to the speakers. I'm sure you must have a lot of food for thought.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you as well, Danielle and Peter, for the presentations, and hello to everyone. I'm not sure how much of an expert I am, but I'm definitely somebody very curious and very interested in the use of civic tech and the potential that it holds. I have plenty of questions indeed, but I'm also mindful of the time and the fact that people from the audience maybe have their questions too. So I will try to group my interventions around some categories. And the first category refers mostly to what the EU does and what are the solutions that it proposes to the challenge posed by the big tech. This is to say that in the past couple of years, there are plenty of legislative initiatives that the EU approved. Among those, there is the AI Act, which was adopted in 2024, that mainly focuses for now on the risk posed by AI concerning personal surveillance, but there are also other measures that it foresees. There is also the European Democracy Shield, which was adopted last year by the European Commission, and that focuses on the threats posed by the AI, but not only, generally by the big tech for the European security. And lately, there is also a lot of discussion about the EU Digital Omnibus, which is a regulation that tries to simplify other legislative measures that were adopted in order to make the implementation of these laws easier and maybe smoother also for smaller companies that are trying to provide alternative to big tech. There are a lot of discussions about them. There are a lot of measures that are look very good on paper. However, earlier we heard from Peter that there is also a challenge of the hot potato, or a lack of political will to take certain steps that would be more meaningful. And I would like to challenge you maybe by posing a question concerning the lack of political will, and how do you experience that in your own activity, first of all? And second of all, what is your approach towards this lack of support maybe that you sense? And thirdly, because we are here in an audience of citizens, how can we help? What can we do in order to maybe contribute to this um, process of gaining some support for an alternative? I know these are a lot of questions, and I see you looking a bit challenged.
Oof. Daniela, you'd start this job, or
Okay.
where do we start? Where do we
Okay.
start? Where do we start, Daniela?
Okay. So I thank you for the relevant question, Catalina, and I feel this also naturally connects with I see one question in the chat from Barbara,
Yeah,
and
sure.
which is basically is, getting they point to the same direction. So um, I would say that right now we're not seeing that political will, mostly because of responsibility and incentives that politicians and institutions they have in terms of their own playing their own roles. Okay, so no politician, no administrator want to become the, please let me kind of create this picture in your mind, the new Elon Musk who initiatified something for the public. Okay, so if private entity does something wrong and ruins a context for everybody, it's just because of greed, it's some American, whatever, But everybody, politicians, they don't want to see themselves, of course, as somebody who pushed something that could fail in that sense, and of course require a huge shift in that sense to move towards something which is uncertain at that point and is very niche. So that political will is related to, I would say, a lack of incentive to create that specific those specific alternatives. And in general, is also a matter of reach out and outreach.
Main, mainly.
The the Fediverse network is doesn't have the same numbers. So when it comes like to justify funding, of course, it's not justifiable. So if the European Commission has to decide if to spend, I don't know, X amount on advertising over building their own platform, which, you know, has many different things attached to it in terms of governance and responsibility and data protection and so many different other things, they will always choose the quickest and the easiest route and just go for funding advertising. So it's that sense. And
But Daniele, we know about cases whereby even the European Data Protection Supervisor is in a court case with the European Commission, thanks to the
mm,
fact that the European Commission is not following their own GDPR rules, by using Microsoft. You're in a situation of chicken and egg. Uh, and okay, once I go along with you, like politicians are there for a limited time. Yes, they don't have any reach by using the Fediverse at this very moment. But getting in a decent communication, decent dialogue with, and that's what we studied, that we found out in our study as well, between certain institutions, and now we're talking about administration, that would benefit them, not to use Twitter or whatever, but to use something that really gives them valuable information and communication. So there are several reasons here, I think for the moment, things like the Fediverse and open source software, and I hope this all continues because it's uncertain at this very moment. There is the NGI program, the Next Generation Internet funding program, that's going to end this year. And we are still uncertain about where the strategy is going for the European Union, actually. Well, they will go to open source software, but in what way? And how precisely. What we see, what I follow in all the new talks, and I follow a lot of them, is like they're focusing on, oh, you know what? Let's look for some certain consortia who will take care about these things. The risk there is then that certain people, organizations in these consortia, and then we're talking again about the big tech, will be involved. I will be pretending that they do open source. Of course, they provide open source software. You know, it's a chicken and egg situation whereby the ones who are in power have to decide to go for further steps in this direction. They are under pressure since democracy is at stake. But at the other side, they are kept, there is this big tech thingy and the friends of our friend in the White House who keeps them really in a grip. That's one of the main things, to my opinion, because I see really initiatives within the OSPOs, the open source offices in the governments in Holland, in France, in Germany, and they really, the people in the organizations, in the administration, they want to go for it. And therefore, even the Dutch government funded changements in actually at Amazon, at what I'm saying, at Mastodon recently. Usability issues solved by the Dutch government at Mastodon. And that kind of changes will bring this wheel turning. I hope so. But the democracy is at stake, and we all know it. The report of 2 days ago published in Holland about the democracy and how people are really feeling about democracy is horrible. It says like, guys, let's get it off because youngsters nowadays are lost. The publications of universities, where are these going now? If you do your publications in Google and in, I don't know what, Amazon environment and in Microsoft environment, yeah, you're not an owner any longer of your own knowledge.
And in this very critical context, and also with a lot of limitations that you just pointed towards, how can citizens still feel empowered? What are the actions available to each in order to maybe elicit some pressure towards the politicians that are there, but even to contribute to a change in adoption?
In my opinion, I would say it's I'm taking this from a teacher, I'm sorry. But I would say it's a matter of, first of all, learning and knowing that this type of alternatives exist and understand what actually explore, at least explore, I would say is already a big chunk. Realizing that an alternative is out there. And this could be in terms of social media. It could be in terms of type of LLM you use, or also understanding that maybe you don't need an LLM for a specific type of activity. So is always like understanding everything which is in a specific situation and taking that into consideration for your next action. And when it comes to the Fediverse in particular, I would say is join the Fediverse and see if that works for you. And maybe you bring a friend, and maybe you start to change a little bit of your online habits and see how it goes. So know the alternatives, first step. Second, try to use the alternatives. And third steps, I would say is, whenever you have the chance, talk about it, spread the message. And if you have the chance, say your opinion also as an individual. To a politician, just send them an email, you know. So it's already a lot in that sense. I don't know if all of us can change everything all at once, but at least trying those alternatives. And I know the future can look grim on so many little things, but I don't know. I studied this. I don't know. I realized that after many different things we tried and I tried, and in the end, it's always about like creating that sort of network of trust between people who share the same vision and support each other in like using those alternatives and making them work for us. Something which, to be honest, mainstream social media don't always offer in that sense. So that's my take.
We're
Hello.
lucky in a way that we have the best marketeer on the planet, actually, and that's Donald Trump at this moment, you know? So that's our
Just
salesperson.
I would like to, sorry to interrupt you, because we are almost out of time.
Yeah.
So I want to just give briefly the floor, and thank you so much for all the questions. I will stay 5 more minutes for everyone that wants to ask some more. Peter and Danielle, also Catalina, feel free to stay, but I will give the floor for 2 seconds to Francesco, who would like to say a few last words about the humans. And then we can also ask the questions from the audience really quickly. And I welcome everyone that can stay a little bit longer. Francesco,
So first
go
of all,
ahead.
thank you very much to, Anna, Stefano, Antonio, Peter, Daniele, and Catalina. I think that you all made this session extremely interesting, not only for the attendance of the webinar, but in general for our political activities at Humans. In fact, you touched on a lot of points that, of course, are part of our reflections on social networks. For example, if I may say, I cannot but agree on your point that algorithms shape societies. They shape what we see, what each of us sees, what each of us thinks is reality, and therefore they shape the way we think about it, and therefore they shape the way we think politically. And I also believe that, of course, it's true that everyone should take responsibility. First of all, public administrations, at the end of the day, democracy. And in general, the public debate and information should be a public service. And being a public service means that they can also be deployed by private entities, but there must be a clear choice by public administrations that these services are delivered in a way that is compliant with democratic value and is, I can say, citizen-centric at least. This is not the case at the time being. We have public services that are delivered by private companies that follow just profit-led mechanisms, and of course, this is a huge problem when it comes to democracy. And other things that I find extremely interesting are, for example, the fact that integrating the Fediverse for civil society is cheap. We all know the civil society is facing huge financial constraints, especially after the closure of American aid and being in a Brussels bubble. We see the civil society has increasingly struggled to find funding, and these of course affects humans as well. So if any of you would like to become a member or donate something, of course we would extremely appreciate it. But in general, finding the financial sustainability for movements like Humans is more and more difficult. And oftentimes you exist on social networks or big tech social networks, and they will never really incentivize your content because oftentimes they go against their business model, and the algorithms are just shaped to prevent you from becoming viral. So I think that a lot of points were extremely important. What I will bring for sure to the conversation we will have at Eurodig is that every of us must be held accountable and responsible for the choices we make. And while public administration, educational system, whatever, must inform people that alternatives exist, not just blindly adopt the solutions that are already all over the place. At the same time, change must come from the grassroots, must come from all of us, and of course must come also from public administrations that should really use open source tools, not only to communicate, which is what you were focusing on during your presentation, but in general for their own management. At the time being, believe me, most public institutions run on big tech software. They are completely lock-in, for example, even in big tech cloud services, in data storage, and so on and so forth. This is a massive problem of sovereignty, even though sovereignty is a very complex term, but let's say it's a huge problem of sovereignty and data control for Europeans, because none of this is really under our control. And that said, I thank you again for the amazing food for thought you gave all of us during this session. As you saw, there was at some point a cut in the recording, but I started immediately. I hope this will not affect the quality of the recording we will post on YouTube. But I thank you once again, and of course I invite all of you, not only the speakers but everyone attending, to be in touch. If you're interested in pursuing these conversations, please scan the QR code, join the campaign, or go on our website and look for the Civic AI page. We are always looking for new people to support our activities, and in general, my email is extremely easy, is francesco.vewchi@eumans.eu. You can also find me on LinkedIn, so please reach out if you want to help us elaborate new areas of the campaign, and for example something stronger even on the social network side, which at the time being has not been our main focus area. Thank you again.
Hello, can you hear me? I, of course, at the last minute, I had an issue with my mic. Okay, thank you very much, Francesco. I am really happy about how everyone just went over time, and we actually had a very interesting conclusion. I see that already Daniel answered some of the questions posted by the audience on the chat, so I'm glad that this could be done. I think I want to thank a lot the speakers today, and I see one more question that and also Catalina can help me answer to this one, if you can stay 2 more seconds. I would like to ask you also by the chat, why has EU has done so little till now to integrate open source platforms? Is democracy taken for granted? Is it a question of political underestimation? And I will also add something else. Is it also about security? Can you briefly answer that?
I can try to briefly address that, even though I think there are many more layers that I can cover in a few minutes. And also already Peter and Daniele touched a bit upon that. There is definitely not a lack of acknowledgement of the issue, because if we're listening to the rhetoric of the EU, particularly in the last mandate of the von der Leyen Commission, but also in the current mandate, there is a lot of emphasis on the dangers to the European security, a lot of emphasis on the need to protect the European democracy. We even have a commissioner now that is mandated to protect the European values and democracy. However, there is a discrepancy between the rhetoric and the implementation, and that might have to do, on one hand, with the way that the EU functions as a supranational multi-governance structure, which means to take action in the EU depends on different institutions, on different actors with different powers and capacities. So even though there is goodwill, there is a lot of work necessary and a lot of lobbying efforts to bring everybody on the same page. And obviously, a lot of interests interfere in this process. As Peter was mentioning earlier, of course, you have the lobbying of big tech that would try to push for their agenda, which have a lot of resources, which have a lot of agents in the Brussels bubble as well, and who are trying to have dialogues. And if those dialogues do not happen in the Commission, which functions based on a technocrat mandate, meaning following the law and producing these laws, this lobbying happens more towards the parliamentarians, but also at national level. In order to have any piece of legislation and any significant change happening, you also need to have the council approving any decision. And if somebody in the council, be that a representative of one country or another, is against a certain measure, especially the most challenging ones, it's very easy to block any decision. So that would explain why certain things do not happen. And on the other hand, there is also the inertia of doing things as they are. We are talking about a structure that is very complex. And if it's to talk operationally, I still remember the time when I was doing an internship at the Commission, and the operating system of the computers was from decades ago, and it was mega slow, and it was rebooting constantly, and it was very difficult to actually do anything. And everybody was aware of that. And I remember my colleagues were coming to the office, drinking a coffee while the computer was rebooting, while everything was charging, and they were aware that we'll need to take technical breaks, as they were calling them. Why there was not another solution? Well, because the IT department was, well, it's too complicated. We have to update everything. We need to even change the hard drive, meaning the computers that are there are used to be quite old. So I think there is also this sort of inertia and a lot of belief of people who have been in the system for a long while that, well, we are used to do things like that, and it would be much more difficult to change. And I think it's also necessary to, aside from bringing the political will, there is also a need for a bit of change management approach in order to have people be more open to bringing innovation in the way of doing things, even though this innovation actually means being closer to what we stand for as values and as rhetoric. I hope this brings a bit of light to the question that was posed.
Thank you so much, Catalina. And like I said, we are running out of time, but I welcome Peter and Daniel if you want the last words. After that, we are closing the session.
Yes. Yeah, there is one thing that could change a lot, to my opinion, and I mentioned it in my talk, and that had to do with the mass media that we know. We are depending on them to bring us the news. And since that shift is happening, that they are as well using lots of algorithms nowadays, and the fact that they, over the time, got more and more and more, so the broadcasters, the newspapers, more and more locked in the big tech environment. And I noticed that they are getting aware of that because it's actually disrupting their business model more and more and more. Their relationship with their audience is gonna vanish. And I can feel that then, that's what I was pointing to, the fact that if we consider these algorithms nowadays as institutions themselves, because they are replacing the mass media, then we really have to be like, whoa, 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 wait a second. For us as an audience, as a citizen, but these companies as well are getting aware of this. And there is a potential big change happening. I can feel that. Because where is their business if it's all done by algorithms? And that's something I would keep an eye on. Yes. And now next to this, the influence of what we noticed, like in what in Holland happened was like the moment that one of the judges of the Court of Judges in The Hague was actually cut off of Microsoft, as they said, because he said something really that Donald didn't like or his administration didn't like. In the Netherlands, that changed a lot. People that resonated really a long time, like, oh my God, if this is happening, there is a kill switch. And even that kill switch is worse than just being cut off of Microsoft, because the moment they put you on that kind of kill list, then you get out of banking, then you get out of all applications, because all businesses who are helping that person, providing that person with services, will be vulnerable. So these things, these changes, well, they will encourage a lot, to my opinion.
Okay, I agree. I have learned a lot today. Daniel, I see you have the mic off, so I don't know if you want to add something else, but feel free to do it. I want to thank you all for all your questions since the beginning. It has been a tremendous, food for thought for me. I even for me, and I hope for all the people that joined us today. It's not an easy topic. We are, especially, I don't come from a technical perspective, and it has been like difficult but also enriching to follow things like open source and other a more technical, let's say, language that often is difficult to grasp, but I think you have explained it very well. Really, I'm looking forward to find you on Mastodon. And with that, and on the Fediverse, I wish you a lot of luck. Antonio, I wish you also a lot of luck with the company, and I'm looking forward to see you all again and to continue, learning and using different technologies. And that there is definitely the takeaways that there exist different platforms, AI platforms as well, to be used rather than the big tech, the big five as well. Thank you so much, Stefano.
Thank you.
As well,
Thank you
you
all.
are in the shadows, but I see you. Thank you very much. And I hope for the audience, this has been, and Catalina, I'm glad you're still here. I see your heart. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it a lot. So also reach out to me on LinkedIn and also to the speakers. You can find them as well. Mastodon, LinkedIn, everywhere that you can ask questions to them. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you all. Thanks for everything.